If you're a new parent or grandparent, you've probably heard of a new account type that is a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Today we're going to be talking about Trump accounts, what they are, how they work, and if they may fit into your family's financial plan. Let's chat. My name is Gina DiGirolamo. I'm here today with Adam Larkin. And as I mentioned, we're talking all about Trump accounts today, which is especially relevant for you, Adam, as you became a new dad in 2025, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just jump right into it? And if you could first highlight where these Trump accounts came from and what they really are.
Yeah, so the Trump accounts came from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And, the reason they're getting a lot of attention right now is just because the government has pledged that they'll give a $1,000 credit to any new parents or parents of babies born between 2025 and 2028. But what these accounts are is that they're effectively pre-tax IRAs that are set up for children under the age of 18. So even if you have a child under the age of 18 that was not born in 2025 or 2026, they can still have one of these accounts. The entire purpose of them is to set young people up with retirement accounts, sooner than what they might have otherwise been eligible to invest into these types of accounts. So they're accounts meant for young kids to establish, kind of the first steps to long-term retirement savings.
So you mentioned the $1,000 contribution for babies born between 2025 and 2028. What does that look like if you're a parent that just wants to contribute to this type of account?
Yeah, so let's go first with if you've had a baby in 2025 or 2026. So if you've made the election on Form 4547 of your tax return from your 2025 tax return, then you've had this account set up, and effectively what's happened, and I've gone through this myself, is that I went in, I plugged in all of my own information, my daughter's information, and then was kind of told, okay, you're all set to receive your $1,000, right? And so in that case, I received that. That's kind of the initial funding for the account. For anybody else, and I guess this would apply both for parents of young babies, but also for parents that did not have a baby in the last 2 years, you can make contributions of up to $5,000. So that would be parents or grandparents, but in total, the contributions to be made into this account cannot exceed $5,000 of your own contribution. So if you receive that $1,000, that doesn't count towards that limit. So you can do $1,000 plus $5,000. If you didn't receive that $1,000, your contribution limit is still $5,000.
Okay, so you mentioned that this is an opportunity to start funding long-term savings and investments for a child.
Yeah.
What does the investments look like in this type of account? What options would a parent have?
Yeah, so what is going to be set up is, similar to how you might have select mutual funds or ETFs available to you in something like a 529 plan, or you might be familiar with this in your company 401k. These accounts will be set up with primarily, so I'll use the quotes, primarily US-based equity positions via mutual funds or ETFs. So they're going to be, baskets of primarily US-based stocks. Now, what does primarily mean? The IRS is set to, set some more official guidance on this, but what the speculation is right now is that that's going to be about 90% or more of those mutual funds or ETFs will be US-based stocks. So said another way, what you're not going to have ability to invest in these accounts are bonds, individual stocks, or primarily foreign equities.
Okay. So on that note, you also had mentioned the comparison of a 529. When we're talking about the investments, folks may have seen this type of strategy in something like a 529. When we're talking about a parent or a grandparent looking to start to save and start to fund for a child, we often talk about things like 529s, maybe UTMA accounts, these other type of account structures made for minors. What would you say the big difference is, or a key thing that someone should know if they want to fund Trump accounts or not?
Yeah. So as simply as I can say it, this is a quote unquote retirement account, right? So a Trump account is effectively at the age of 18, it becomes a pre-tax IRA. So once your child reaches adulthood, it becomes a pre-tax IRA. where then all of the traditional IRA rules that you would be accustomed to, including a 10% penalty on withdrawals under the age of 59 and a half, would apply. That means that these accounts should be set up with long-term investing in mind. Whereas 529 accounts and UTMA accounts, so we'll go 529 first, 529 accounts are meant to be exclusively applied towards higher education expenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that you can spend some of those dollars in high school, but primarily these are used as vehicles to save for college expenses for kids.
Sure.
And then with an UTMA becomes, an account that a child can use once they've reached the age of majority in whatever state they're in. So say if that's 18, those funds are theirs to kind of use at their own discretion.
Mm-hmm.
They have the flexibility to use those funds on whatever and whenever they would like. So, there isn't the same penalty for taking funds pre-retirement, which I guess, again, so that would kind of be the key distinction I would create between the 529 and the UTMA is like, those are a lot of times vehicles to save for expenses maybe right after a child reaches adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
These Trump accounts are means of, getting a head start on long-term retirement savings.
So when you're talking to parents, just kind of going through the logistics of having an account like this, talk a little bit about how the Trump account is titled, who the owner is, and how that applies to the beneficiary or the minor child.
Sure. So the Trump account, from the time that they're set up, they're owned by the child. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, so this would be the same as an UTMA account. The child is technically the owner, but until they've reached the age of majority, the parent is the custodian of the account, meaning that they're the ones who are responsible for deciding, how it should be invested and that kind of thing. So the parent kind of oversees the account from ages 0 to 18, but then it legally becomes the child's at the age of 18, which means that in theory, yes, kids could take distributions from these Trump accounts that become pre-tax IRAs, once they've reached age 18, mm-hmm. but they would be subject to that 10% penalty at that time if they were to take those distributions.
Okay, got it. Well, great explanations. If you were to give a couple key takeaways or just highlights that people should know if they're evaluating whether they should fund this type of account in excess of the $1,000 or anything that they should know kind of going into this.
Yeah, so the key here is to understand your full financial picture as a family, right? So if you do want to save for your children, you want to try to develop an understanding over time of what it is that you're saving for. Do you want to specifically save for college? Do you want to specifically save for expenses that aren't college but might be applicable, between the ages of 20 and 30, right? Where you want some flexibility of those funds and kind of, readily available use of those funds? Or are you trying to help your kids get set up with early retirement saving? That would be the case for the Trump account. And then again, really it becomes, okay, so it's one thing to save for your children, but also you have to understand your own family's financial picture. What are you comfortable contributing to? There are limits with the Trump account, that there aren't as many limits with the UTMA account or the 529 outside of kind of those estate tax, gifting limits. But, it really is a matter of, okay, what are you comfortable contributing? But then what is your priority in saving for your children? And, how would you want those funds to be used by them?
Exactly like Adam said, this is something that is not one size fits all, but really depends on your family's financial situation and how it fits into your plan. So thank you so much for chatting with me today, Adam.
Of course.
And thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to chat again soon.